city, and that was the closest year. The rest of the time it was pretty much about between a 70-30, 75-25 split. So there was money allocated to the county beyond the 92.8. Now I don't know what transpired since 2005. I don't have that information, but that's where it sat in 2005 when the board decided they wanted to dissolve the COG. A couple other issues. When the COG, before the COG was established, it was the local transportation agency, and the problem they had at the time, and it was quoted, was the LTC had difficulty completing planning project and was often deadlocked in 3-3 votes on controversial issues. Providing qualified staff was also a challenge for the LTC. So that is just a background of what I've learned about this whole process over the years. My opinion now regarding and representing the city, I have a deep problem with the expansion of powers of the COG. Deep problem. Back in '98, when it was established, it was a regional transportation agency. Now we're getting into land use and everything else. Just my opinion, the state and Fed is using grant money as a way to expand the power of the COG. If money's available, and we're all going to say if you don't get it, if you don't take it, you lose it. That is terrible. We're all being held hostage to grant money, our tax money. It's not free. So that really bothers me. And as we move forward, and we see things going on now that where did we start the redistribution of wealth? The redistribution of wealth started with grant money, and we all accepted it. We all said, well, if we don't get our grant money, somebody else will. So I have a deep problem with that. So that being said, I would like to see the power between the city and county take back over the transportation agency. And that's no offense to the fine people that work on the COG, but it's just another layer of bureaucracy that is expanding in our country, and we don't need it. Thank you.
Mr. Lynch.
That's mine.
My name is Jack Lynch, City Council of Angels Camp. I served on the COG board from 2007 and 2008. In 2009, I left, but I'm still on the City Council. During that time period of 2007-2008, my experience with COG was without the conflicts that I hear being expressed today. I'm really surprised and stunned at it. The constant reference to land use surprises me. I'm completely at a loss to understanding COG's involvement with land use, however it's being referred, and I'm sorry I don't know anything beyond that. I felt that the presentation that we made from the City Council to COG at that time in the priority transportation projects, our transportation needs were given respect. They were looked at and discussed. The county was doing that at the same time. I did not detect during my time of 2007, 2008, the degree of contention that I've seen today, and I'm at a loss to give an explanation for it. The major thing that was public concern was the public transportation, because when we had any meeting in terms of was any discussion of changing fares, changing bus routes, or anything like that, this room would be packed with people. So there was plenty of public participation. So the issue of the transit agency was a focal point of COG. The regional transportation plan, that wonderful document that looks at the whole county and its transportation needs, a very professionally done document was prepared and disseminated throughout the county to provide proper planning for transportation needs. So those are my impressions, historic or otherwise. In terms of the function of the COG, I was satisfied during the time I was there with the public participation on the COG, city and county. I believe there should be some public participation. Right now, for example, nearby in Tuolumne, they are establishing, we're saying disband. In Tuolumne County, they're saying establish the COG, the equivalent of COG, because they felt that the way it was done in Tuolumne County, one city, Sonora, and the county, they felt that they needed an independent agency, independent from the county and independent from the city, to do their transportation planning. They decided to have one public member. If the number of public members is an issue, that's a possible option. But I think you need a member of the public, and the elected officials of COG have the opportunity to select that individual that serves. I personally felt that the staff of COG was very professional, answered all the questions that I had, and I would be opposed to seeing COG disbanded. It seems as though a lot of that contention is because and again, we have a city council meeting that starts at 4:30, so some of us are going to have to bail out of here in the next 15 minutes, but we'll stay in.
Okay, I've given some earlier comments, and I'll allow those to stand. I agree with Public Works' recommendation. I mean, to me, the two big issues, well, let me answer a little bit, at least from my perspective. Marita can go next and say that's wrong. But part of it is the conflict is, quite frankly, the COG wishes to take over considerable parts of the public works and planning functions that the county does, and you can't have two masters. If you have two masters, I disagree with Al Segala in the sense that, oh, this is very complex. It's not very complex. It's just very confusing. And it's very confusing because we have two masters. And the citizens perceive there's two masters. There's really one master, and there's a fake master, and COG is the fake master because they go out on the project deliveries and do work, whether it be Valley Springs or the mobility plan in San Andres, and yet they have no ability to adopt it. Only the County Board of Supervisors has ability to adopt it. So you have people out there with all kinds of false impressions as to what just took place. You heard Zero McDaniel stand up and talk about how wonderful the COG was and this wonderful product. But COG doesn't adopt it. COG is not the governing authority for it. And so it isn't complex. It's just extremely confusing. It's extremely duplicative. And as long as COG wishes to take over significant components of the public works and planning departments of county, you will have conflict. And the conflict will not go away because the county isn't going to give it up willingly. And it's the county's responsibility to adopt the land use in the public works documents. So then it comes to the board, and the board says, what the heck is this? And the Board of Supervisors says, well, I wasn't involved in any of this. Where did this come from? And the like. There is no reason to abolish the COG. Then you'll just have a COG with a different name and a different set of operating authorities. We have a JPA and a COG. You can do it away when we go back to a local transportation commission. The name is irrelevant. I mean, it's the operational component that is important. Ever since I've been on the COG, long time on the board and on the LTC before that, all I've ever said is I want the county to be treated the same as the city. I mean, COG does not do to the city what COG does to the county. COG does not challenge the city's public works and planning functions. If COG would have obtained a grant for $250,000 and told the city they were going to do their general plan, the city would have said, "Oh, like hell you are. You give us the $250,000. We'll put it in our planning department. We'll pay our consultant, and we'll do the general plan." That's what would have happened in the city. That's not what happens with projects in the county. And for some reason, COG directors, George Dondero or Tim, the challenge is always against the county. It's not against the city, probably because the county's the bigger entity, and if you want to establish an independent power base, you try to establish it within the county. You don't, for some reason, they never have challenged the city, but they challenge the county continually. I am very much in favor of changing the governance structure. And I'm with Rick. I think the county and the city need to take it back. My optimum structure would be to have 5 members of the County Board of Supervisors on the governing body and 5 members of the City Council. And that way the city and county are talking to each other. We don't have to meet here. We can meet at a building with a long rectangular or circular table where we can seat 10 people, and we can all sit down and go through the issues. And I think that would also help the executive director, quite frankly, figure out who the COG's working for. We have controversies on all these issues, and they come to the Board of Supervisors. They don't go to the COG. We're the ones that are held responsible for this. So I would like to see the governance change dramatically. I would like to see 5 city council members and 5 board members. And I don't think we're going to have a lot of deadlock votes. I think if the city is treated the same as the county and vice versa, I think most people would be very happy. If there are going to be some disagreements, it'll be over certain projects and the allocation of funding on the overall work program. That's really about the only thing to argue about, quite frankly, if we get the governance and the organizational structure correct. And I'll just end with one other just observation about COGS, and if we go to an MPO, and the state basically is turning COGS, and somebody else said this, and the MPOs very much so, of the metropolitan planning agencies, and you heard it in the description of them, where it's bicycle paths and walking paths and livable communities, etc. But the COGS and the MPOs, to a significant extent, are becoming environmental agencies, and they try to do a whole bunch with global warming or other environmental issues. They focus on the general plan, but they're also focusing very much on the COGS and the MPOs. And the general plans only get changed, once every 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is when we finally go to change it. But the COGS and the MPOs are becoming the environmental agencies within the counties, formed by the state, and the state is funding them, and all the funding is coming tied with all kinds of environmental rules and requirements. So let me say something positive in ending here, and I think the COG has done a very good job from what I know, and I don't know about other COGs, but it just seems to me, from what I see, that the COG has done a very good job, if not even an outstanding job, in obtaining funding. And Zerrell mentioned, oh my God, we have to have this funding and all. But the COG should not be the project and planning deliverer of the projects. That should be the county and the unincorporated areas, unless the county specifically assigns the project to COG, and the same for the city. COG should do the funding. COG should get the grants. That is one of the primary, and to me it's the primary responsibility of the COG. So it's not like we need to keep the COG to do that component. We do need to keep the COG to do that component. That they're doing well. It's the delivery of the projects and the planning of those projects when it has to come back through the county departments to the Board of Supervisors for adoption, and the county's being significantly cut out of that process, and the county should be entirely involved in the process, as Tom Garcia said, reporting back to COG on the status of the projects that are being funded through COG funding. So I would very much like a change in the governance, and I think it would be wonderful if there were 5 board members and 5 city council members. So that concludes my comments.
Mr. Tuffanelli. Russ, do you want to go first, please?
I'd like to hear what yours.
Would you two like to flip a
I'm in favor of Mr. Garcia's recommendations. I think that the planning and management of the projects needs to go through the appropriate agencies. I don't see COG as the agency in charge of delivering any projects. That's not their function, in my opinion. Their function is, I agree with Tom and Mr. Downey on the fact that they should be out getting fundings. The county and the city should come to them with their projects. Their sole purpose is go out and find funding for those projects, not be involved in delivering those projects. They certainly don't need to be involved in any land decisions whatsoever. That's not their function, in my opinion. How it got to that point, I can't tell you. I wasn't here at the time. But if I was, believe me, I'd be screaming and yelling that it's not what their function is. Public participation. I feel I'm an elected official and I'm held accountable. I agree with Mr. Downey and what Mr. Tryon are both saying in the fact that when you have public people on an agency that controls millions of dollars for projects. Mr. Caldwell brought up the fact that we do have public sitting on other commissions. We do. We have public on planning commission is one that he brought up. However, you can appeal anything any decision the planning commission makes to the Board of Supervisors. If COG makes a decision, you can't appeal that. And recently there were some decisions being made that we felt some repercussions from here as a board as a whole. And I won't go into those, but I feel that we do need to look and address at the makeup of that board. I think it needs to have accountability there when it comes to the public. I think it needs to have more public awareness. The OPW projects need to be posted. They need to be listed. They need to have access to the public. They need to know the status of them. They need to know how much money is going towards them. They need to know how much money has been spent on those, including administration costs on each one of those projects. I do believe that part of visiting the reorganization of the JPA is that we need to clearly clarify the coordination between the agencies and what each agency's role is. And clearly the county and the city and their involvements on the OWP projects. These projects are, and the JPA is the city and the county. That's the entities. They are the two entities and the agencies that created this JPA, and this JPA is a function of those two agencies. I would be in favor of having 5 council members and 5 Board of Supervisor members sitting on this board. I think that would give all of the citizens of this county and including the city and each district representation on a board that distributes funds for projects within the county and within the city. I think that would be totally fair for everybody involved. And again, I say that would be accountability for the monies being spent, and it would give direction to COG on, as Mr. Tryon pointed out, exactly who they work for. And that concludes my opinion. My 2 cents, as Tom would say.
Mr. Thomas?
Okay, Jack, thank you very much for coming today.
Jack, take care.
I'm not sure how to fix the problems, but I'm here to acknowledge that there obviously are problems, big problems. I do want to take this opportunity to declare for anybody who is here listening that I wasn't taken over by Agenda 21. Never have been, and I don't know, Tim, when was your organization taken over by Agenda 21? I'm asking that facetiously because I honestly think that I can speak for myself and for my personal observations about the efforts of the COG members, the COG staff, the public members, that they're doing their work with a selfless motivation to do the best job that they can do every time that they meet for this county. So to have references to the conspiracy theories associated with the UN Agenda 21, I just find that to be very, very baffling. I'm puzzled by that every time I hear it. I don't think that a 5 and 5 member COG or that structure is workable. Having 5 members of the Board of Supervisors and 5 members of the City Council meet as frequently as the COG does, I just have more faith in the structure that we have, or something similar to what we have now with the 2 representatives from the city and 2 representatives from the county. I don't know exactly how we've come to the point where we're all pointing fingers at the public members as being the fly in the ointment, or there's the old sabotage comes from the word throwing wooden shoes into machinery, but I don't think that these 3 public members and their alternates are the people that are sabotaging. I know David Wood personally is a very highly principled person. Pat Maurer and John Ellis, they all do their best work, like I mentioned before, each and every time that they show up. So I do want to echo what Supervisor Toffanelli said, that I see some validity in the recommendations from Public Works. It would be wonderful if COG could extract itself from land use policy, driving policies. The fact that the Valley Springs Community Plan, and we're not supposed to talk about that, had gotten so much of a giant fiasco, has caused a lot of people's emotions to run pretty high and pretty thin for the last couple of years. It has cost me dearly, because I'm trying to be sort of neutral in it, and I'm constantly being
Mr. Thomas has the floor, please.
I have never thought that it was the 5th District's supervisor's position to be trying to direct where the Valley Springs Community Plan is going to go. Many times my position has been represented as being that I was trying to push the Rancho residents into the Valley Springs Community Plan, and I have repeated at least a dozen times from this microphone that has never been my position. The people in Rancho Calaveras have always had the privilege and the very distinct need to decide for themselves where they wanted to be, and they did that. And I have never had a moment's problem with that decision to stay out of it. Now,
Mr. Thomas has the floor, please.
I think you better ask me to leave, Madam Chairperson. I can't stand it.
That's your choice, Mr. Anderson. Mr.
right.
Thomas, please continue.
Well, apparently, once again, my position has been mischaracterized by somebody who is leaving the room. But I would be in support of taking a very close look at making some structural changes, some very distinct prohibitions against what COG is supposed to be doing in the realm of planning. I think that there was a particularly bad decision that was made in the way that the COG made up some maps as a result of their interpretation of a certain ordinance or an interim ordinance that the County Board of Supervisors put out in 2007 that really fundamentally caused all the furor. That assuming that anything that didn't have sewer and water had to be a 40-acre minimum, and then it caused it to be colored green on a map. That was like throwing a match into a bottle or a bucket full of gasoline. Shouldn't have happened. And if there had been some rules for COG to prohibit them from getting involved in land use decisions, that could have been avoided. So, in summary, I want to just go back to where I started. I don't know fully what the solutions are, but I would start with a restructuring perhaps and a definite prohibition about what COG should not do.
Sorry, we have to leave. Sorry.
I'd like to comment. I think the setup of the COG as it is now is fine. I like having public members on the COG. It is the elected officials, the 2 from the city, the 2 from the county, that appoint the public members. If we don't like who they are, then shame on us, because we're the ones that appointed them. The Arnold Mobility Plan is an excellent example of a project that the COG and the Planning Department worked on cooperatively. It went smoothly. It's become an integral part of planning in the Arnold area. So, I mean, we're all looking at finger pointing. We had lots of wonderful things to say about the COG when we came up with the Memorandum of Understanding 1 and Memorandum of Understanding 2 that came about because of the work of the Council of Governments, including the bypass, the Regional Transportation Plan, the benefit basins, and the RIM, whether we like to talk about it or not. I think in one thing I would like to have covered, and I've discussed this in the Board of Supervisors and the COG, is when projects are done, if they need an EIR, that an EIR is funded as part of that project. There are things in Mr. Garcia's memo on changes that are, to me, housekeeping issues that should be resolved between the city, county, and COG, such as how many calendar days before a meeting. I don't think we need to be bothered with that. I think if the 3 agencies can't come together, then we should be looking at replacing all 3 agencies. The audit where the county and the city should be able to look at the COG's expenditures at any time. We do have a CPA audit that's done of the COG. They do put out a budget. If they would like the budget tweaked to give them different information in different format, I'm sure that could be done. I could ask the same question of the county. Is all of our projects on the county website, and which will tell me what days you're going to be doing what projects, because I have called your department and asked for status update. Never once have I been told, oh, it's on the county website. So if you're going to ask that the COG, which I'm all for that, then I think then that the city and the county should also be putting all of their road projects on the county website. What I would like to see is the city, the county, and the COG as at least an invited member, because this is a JPA agreement between the city and the county, get together, come up with a draft to present to the respective city council and board of supervisors, and then taking some of the comments that the county made. The city made some, but I really wasn't clear how that would relate to the JPA agreement. But, maybe I'm reading some of their questions wrong. So I think that the three entities could get together and come up with something. The key is what would be the makeup of the JPA, and I think maybe we need to come up with a few options. I know there were some options that were given in the staff report, and some options that did come up today which were not on the staff report. So those are my comments, and go ahead.
I just have a question for you. What do you mean, take some of the comments, and you weren't clear on what the city's comments were? I thought the city was very clear. I thought Mr. Downey was very clear. I thought Elaine Morris was very clear, and Jack
didn't
his comments were more based on his experience, but I thought the other two members were very clear, and I'm not sure what you mean on take some of the comments.
Well, you could take the
Who's
one where
going to
you
determine
want.
what sum's going to be taken?
Well, that would be each of the respective boards. If you and Tom want 5 members of the Board of Supervisors sitting on a council of governments, and I want to go back. It used to be that the county was the manager of the LTC, and we did not do a good job of that, which is why we moved to the format that we had. And the LTC wasn't working, and that's why we moved to the council of government.
You're going back to a whole different set of players.
Yeah, that's back in that's history.
The reasons that didn't happen, those players no longer.
That's telling the current board.
Well,
that they
you're
have,
still here, Tom.
Yeah, but that's telling the current people they don't have the ability to take that responsibility. And that's
I
not
think
true.
Okay.
Not true.
If you want 5 members and Tom wants 5 members and Rick, that make that one of the options. I do not want to sit with 10 members of a council of governments. I don't think that's what we need. But that could be one of the options. No, I mean, I like having public members. I don't think we're shirking our responsibility in any way by having public members.
Yeah, I've given my 2 cents worth on that, but I strongly disagree with you, and I think you should pull the board. This is a JPA between the county and the city, and I think it needs to basically stay, and the discussion stay between the city and the county. I don't mind sending a copy off to the COG for comments, but I don't think COG should be sitting down at the table with the city and county to comprise a JPA that will most accurately reflect what the county and the city would like from COG. That makes no sense at all to me.
I'll have to agree with that.
I mean,
Well,
the
Tom,
city
I
and the
mean,
county need to make that determination.
It's a JPA between the city and the county.
I mean, the
That's
COG
right.
doesn't come in and help draft the
they don't have
joint
to, but
powers
they can
agreement.
offer one on the child support JPA, on Area 12 JPA.
Joe, I'm just saying,
The
that maybe you should
JPAs
pull
are
the board,
involved.
because I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, there's
at all.
2 of you. 2 of you want it. And you said Rick wanted 10 members.
Wanted what?
10 members, 5 and 5.
That's not what he was talking about in that comment. The comment
I'm talking
was
about
a
the
committee
negotiations
to...
between the city and county should remain between the city and county on the amendments to the joint powers agreement.
Okay.
COG should not be sitting at the table negotiating their own
If you're asking me
JPA.
to pull the board, Russ, what are your thoughts?
I agree with that.
Okay, and Gary does, I don't, and Tom
I do.
does, so there you
I agree
have
with
it.
Tom Tryon.
I don't.
Is that the first,
Okay.
is that the first time?
Quite often that doesn't happen when the vote comes, huh?
So at least as a courtesy, I think you should give a copy to the executive director and see how
That's
that
fine.
might
Ask for comments,
dovetail.
but they don't sit at the table.
Oh, fine, Tom, you've got your vote on that, as misguided as it is. But anyway, my apologies.
That's an opinion, and that's an opinion by you.
That's a personal opinion.
The status quo is going so well.
Mr. Garcia, do you know about when you think you'd be able to come back with a draft? 1 month, 2 years, when?
We'd have to sit down with Tom and go to the administrator. I don't know how long it would take us to sit down and negotiate. I'm sure the city will have different thoughts on this process of how projects aren't being done completely in certain timeframes. That might go back to the city or something like that. There's
Okay.
a lot of negotiation points.
Well,
That's fine.
What I'm saying is that I don't
That's
think
fine.
that's negotiate between the city and the county.
That's fine.
The city and the county need to sit down. And go
Tom, maybe you could just report back in a month on the status of where it is. Thank you.
Report back when it's timely. That's the way I would leave it. And I think the discussion should be between Jeannie, Tom, David, and the city administrator, and then you guys can come, if you need additional direction from either the Board of Supervisors or the City Council, then you will need to come back and obtain that direction.
Oh, thank you, Tom. I didn't think I could do that without you. Is there any other comments? This meeting is adjourned.